Number stations are, for me, one of the world's biggest mysteries. I've been asked about their mystery when I took part in no less than 3 television documentaries by some big companies that oddly have never seen the light of day. I wonder why. I always say that in my opinion, they're one of the world's biggest secrets. We know more about Area 51 than number stations from an official point of view, for example, and only on 1 or 2 occasions have the world's intelligence agencies ever referenced their use, usually in high-profile spying cases. Jeffrey Prime, Erwin van Harlem, to name just 2 off the top of my head. Some spies such as Oleg Gordievsky and Jack Barsky have openly admitted to using them, and the Ana Montes spying case confirmed their operation too. It's still impossible, however, for us civilians to crack their codes, and not one number station has ever been deciphered by a civilian. So, with all of this in mind, imagine the look of surprise on 1 or 2 lucky shortwave listeners' faces back in the 1990s, when a number station sent them some mail. This is the story of the S05 family, and it's quite a complex one, so bear with me. The story starts on a chilly Saturday morning in April 1988, when detectives arrived outside the North London home of Erwin van Harlem. Van Harlem was a Cold War-era spy for Communist Czechoslovakia who worked in London. He lived here in Silverbirch Close in Friern Barnet and became the centre of an investigation led by the British intelligence agency MI5, who suspected he was a spy. At 9:15, detectives from Special Branch, the anti-terror unit of London's Metropolitan Police, stormed his house and found Van Harlem hunched over a radio in his kitchen, dressed in his pyjamas. He was tuned to a number station that was believed to be S05. In his earpiece, a female voice recited numbers in Czech. Van Harlem tried to lower his radio's antenna, but it jammed. When he pulled open a drawer and grabbed a kitchen knife, an officer tackled him and yelled, "Enough, it's over, it's over." When they searched his home, they found a one-time pad, a tool used to decrypt number stations which, if used correctly, renders them uncrackable to anyone else, concealed in a bar of soap. They found car magazines, later found to contain messages written in invisible ink, as well as the chemicals to reveal them. On March 4, 1989, at 11:45, the judge sentenced Erwin van Harlem to 10 years in prison for espionage. It was later revealed that he was handled by the Czech Secret Police, or STB. The STB searched through its files for missing persons and assigned Václav Jelinek the false identity Erwin van Harlem. He planned to spy on the royals, planting listening devices in the Queen's furniture. At night, he received coded messages from the STB via number stations. After his trial, Van Harlem was sent to Parkhurst Prison on the Isle of Wight. After 5 years, the end of the Cold War and a hunger strike, he was released and then deported to what had by then become the Czech Republic. His story is a long and complex one, with many shocking revelations, so I won't spoil it, plus the video would be an hour long. This story is, however, an almost concrete confirmation of the existence and purpose of S05. Van Harlem died in Prague on the 8th of February 2022 at the age of 77. The first number station in the S05 family was S05. It had numerous variants and counterparts that operated different modes. It was one of the only number stations, as far as I can recall, to openly transmit a real ITU-registered call sign. The ITU, or International Telecommunication Union, allocates call sign prefixes to radio and television stations of all types. S05's was OLX, and the station was initially operated by the Czechoslovak State Security, or STB, the secret police force in Communist Czechoslovakia from 1945 until its dissolution in 1990. The schedule S05 and its counterparts used was very extensive, and frequencies ventured high into the shortwave spectrum, which indicated a need to reach agents far removed from Czechoslovakia and the Czech Republic. Broadcasts from this station occurred regularly, month after month. However, all of this was to change during the wave of revolutions that swept Eastern Europe during 1989, and it was only in the early 1990s that, astonishingly, regular schedules were partly resumed. S05 was reactivated by the Czech Office of Foreign Relations and Information, or UZSI. As I said, S05 operated under the ITU registered call sign OLX. This was, for reasons unknown, registered to and assigned to CTK, a national public service news agency in the Czech Republic. Now I'll break down all of the variants of the station in detail, starting with S05 itself. I thought it might be appropriate, while largely unrelated, to show you some of the really interesting old photos of the Czech Embassy in London and its diplomatic radio antennas on the roof. S05 messages started on the hour and operated 23 hours a day, with no transmission at 2200 UTC for reasons unknown. It spoke in the Czech language, read by a computer-synthesized female voice at 10 groups per minute. First, let's look at traffic messages for S05. This early variant didn't use the OLX call sign in its messages, and wasn't the one that sent mail to listeners. Its preamble consisted of a 3-figure ID repeated for 5 minutes, followed by a group count, the amount of 5-figure groups of numbers in the message. Next came those 5-figure groups, followed by opakuji, meaning repeat. The group count was repeated, followed by the 5-figure groups again. The operator signed off with Konec, which means end. On an interesting side note, the Konet Project number station CD name comes from a mishearing of Konec. Null messages consisted of a 3-figure ID repeated for 2 minutes and nothing else. Null messages were used to confirm to any recipients that no traffic was to be sent. It's better than the recipient wondering if they'd missed a message due to propagation issues. The first variant of S05 was S05A. Enigma name Rapid Dots OLX, S05A actually replaced S05 in the early 1980s. This variant also didn't use the OLX call sign in its messages and didn't send the mail. The preamble consisted of a series of rapid dots for 5 minutes, followed by a 3-figure ID repeated for 5 minutes. This was followed by a group count, and then the 5-figure groups, followed by opakuji, meaning repeat. The group count was repeated, followed by the 5-figure groups again. The operator signed off with Konec. Null messages consisted of the rapid dots for 5 minutes, followed by a 3-figure ID repeated for 5 minutes. Ultimately, S05A was replaced in the early 1990s by S05B. The exact time of its replacement isn't clear. Between 1989 and 1990, Czechoslovakia formally became a federal republic, comprising of the Czech Socialist Republic and the Slovak Socialist Republic. In late 1989, the communist rule came to an end during the Velvet Revolution, followed by the re-establishment of a democratic parliamentary republic. Between 1990 and 1992, shortly after the Velvet Revolution, the state was renamed the Czech and Slovak Federative Republic, consisting of the Czech Republic and the Slovak Republic until the peaceful dissolution on the 31st of December 1992. The Czech Republic came into being on January 1, 1993, following the division. S05B was operated by the Czech Office of Foreign Relations and Information, or UZSI, which was formed on the same day. It was the main foreign intelligence service of the Czech Republic, responsible for collection, analysis and dissemination of intelligence. This is when I surmise S05B replaced S05A. Most sources just say the early 1990s, which brings me on to S05B, and this is the station that used the OLX call sign and did send the mail or QSL cards to listeners. Transmissions began 5 minutes before the hour with a Morse code ID OLX in the form of VVV-DE OLX OLX. This preamble was repeated for 5 minutes. This was followed by a group count, the amount of 5-figure groups of numbers in the message. Next came the 5-figure groups of numbers, followed by opakugi or repeat. The group count was repeated, followed by the 5-figure groups again. The operator signed off with konek, which means end. S05B didn't have a null message format. Now let's look at the QSLs that S05B sent. There are 3 known QSLs, but there may have been more. A QSL card is a confirmation of someone's signal report. Veteran numbers expert Simon Mason, Ari Boender, and another I can't identify all received QSLs from OLX in 1994 after writing to the Czech Ministry of the Interior. Simon Mason received this card on May 26, 1994. It confirms his reception of OLX and even gives the summer and winter frequencies in use. It's handwritten and stamped with the Czech Ministry of the Interior stamp. Until now, as in this video, this QSL card hasn't existed publicly in this quality. Ari Boender received a similar card after sending a signal report on September 22, 1994. This card to an unknown recipient even corrected him and gave him the right frequencies. Now let's look at the Morse code counterparts, M06 and M06A. M06 sent traffic messages and was the OLX counterpart. M06A sent both null and traffic messages and was the Rapid Dots OLX counterpart. I know it's really confusing. M06 transmissions began with the preamble VVV-DE OLX OLX repeated for 5 minutes. This was followed by a 3-figure ID repeated 6 times, BT, and then 011 repeated twice. The purpose of 011 is unknown and it appeared in all messages. Next came BT, the group count or amount of 5-figure groups in the message, BT again, and then the 5-figure groups themselves. These were followed by AR, BT, the group count, BT, and the 5-figure groups again. Messages ended with AR, BT, and the 3-figure ID repeated 3 times. M06 used many IDs. The VVV-DE OLX OLX preamble started 5 minutes before the hour and was sent at 15 words per minute. The rest of the transmission was 25 words per minute. Now let's look at M06A, which was actually replaced by M06. M06A traffic messages were identical to M06's, but instead of the OLX Morse code preamble, there was a series of rapid dots repeated for 5 minutes. Just to reiterate my earlier point to clear things up, M06 sent traffic messages and was the OLX counterpart. M06A sent both null and traffic messages and was the rapid dots OLX counterpart. Null messages consisted of the rapid dots repeated for 5 minutes, followed by a 3-figure ID sent 6 times, BT, and the unknown 011. This was all repeated for 2 minutes. Something that's noteworthy that I've left out until now is the former Enigma identifiers for the S05 family. S05 was always known as OLX with M06A as its counterpart. S05A, Rapid Dots OLX, was formerly known as S15, with M06A as its counterpart. S05B OLX was formerly known as S16, with M06 as its counterpart. I'm going for a lie down. Some sources claim that S05B ceased operations in 1996, and some claim it went silent on August 3, 1997, during the Great Floods in Central Europe in the summer of 1997. M06 was last heard on August 2, 1997. In the Czech Republic, 2,151 flats and 48 bridges were destroyed. 538 villages and towns were affected by the floods. The losses were estimated at 63 billion Czech crowns, and 50 people tragically lost their lives. It was reported that the Czech Secret Service was planning to close down OLX anyway. It was eventually replaced by S10D, Bulgarian Betty, which, despite its name, was also a Czech intelligence number station. There are so many questions surrounding OLX. Why was it registered to a national public service news agency in the Czech Republic? Why did it have an ITU registered call sign, and why did it respond to QSL reception reports? Was this a way of demystifying OLX? Maybe some brief public relations might take the mystery out of the station and stop people asking too many questions.